Good day, everybody. Welcome to Support Saturday Masterclass edition. And today we have Lynette Young, who's going to do a masterclass on learn the abacus and how to integrate abacus into your math lessons. All right, Lynette, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. Just wanted to talk about more about the abacus, and I have a little presentation that I am ready to present. And so, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just wanted to talk about so in the hub, what you guys have is this thing called Abacus for Kids, and I just want to talk more about what an abacus does. So the idea for the abacus is that it actually fills gaps that we don't see in the early stages. Um, as we go through, the knowledge of being number flexible makes math more fun and easier to learn later down the line, and that's what abacus will help. The foundation of Abacus will have a strong math foundation, and it also provides confidence for the children. So what it does is when kids start getting answers and they start knowing that it's right, they feel more confident when they start working with the abacus because it is quite simple and it's easy to go through. Now, the abacus is a great way to learn math in and to sorry and it's a great way to learn math and using it as a tactile tool. So they a little bit of history about the abacus. It goes all the way from the different cultures to the different time periods. So it started off in Mesopotamia with counting beads and counting a board. It went to China, and that's when they started with two beads on the top and five beads on the bottom. There's a little picture on the side over there. Then it moved to Japan, which they made it more efficient because that's what Japanese people do is they make things more efficient. So they actually made the ab on top and four beads on the bottom. The Russian abacus is 10 beads across, and it's just in different columns. I don't ask me how to use it. I can kind of guess, but I don't want to overextend. Next is it goes into the medieval times and the Renaissance, and there was a thing called the Russian abacus. And then finally, in now in the 21st century, it is worldwide. It's in majority, it's in Asia, like India, Japan, Singapore, and I see a lot of videos in Africa now. I'm just trying to make it more North American. So there's other types of counters that we have, just in general, like something tactile. If you want to incorporate more tactile counting when you start doing your math, dot counters is used for counting as well as a reckon rec. A reckon rec is 10 beads like a Russian abacus, but the difference is that it comes in two colors. And it comes in two colors with groups of five. So there's five beads that's red and five beads that's white. The other things that we use as tactile for math is this thing called blocks. So there's a square, that's a block of 1,000. There is the sheet, the blue sheet that you see on the left, that is 100. You have the rods, which is the columns, those are tens. And then the yellow squares is just the unit of one. And then the other, not lastly, but the other thing that we could also use are called math linking blocks. So this is just a picture of the abacus. I'll show you how to use a real one a little bit. But as the picture goes, this is the frame. The frame holds the beads and the rods. And then from here, oh, oops. The beam, there's a beam in the middle of the abacus. That's what tracks the beads to make sure to what tracks the active beads, so what we're actually counting. The column is what holds the beads, and then the beads actually slide up and down the columns slide up and down the column. The bottom beads has a value of 1, and the top beads have a value of 5. So here I'm going to show you how to use the abacus. All right. So, yes, Beth does use the right, no, she used a Kramer one. So here is the abacus. This is a teacher's abacus, and just to show, so we actually are able to use we can change the placement of the ones. So these are the columns that we are talking about. And so if I wanted to start showing the ones column, this is where the dot will go. If I want the ones column to be here, this is where I move the dot. You can't move it on a student abacus, but you can move it on a teacher's abacus, just so it's easier to manipulate. So in here, this is the frame that I talked about. This is the beam. The beam is what counts the active beads. So when I do 1, and these are the value of 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4. So when students see this, they talk about subitizing. And so it's easy to see that this is 4 as opposed to 2, right? So then if we have 4, to do 5 is the top bead. The top bead will always be a value of 5. 5, 5, 5. They're all 5s, okay? So but if these are all 5s, how do I get 6? Well, 6 is 5 and 1. So 6. This is together is 6. The kids will start to learn and see how the beads will move. And this also provides the introduction of decomposing, because now they know that if I take away the 5, it becomes 1. If I add the 5, it becomes 6. So it's the same thing with 7, 8, and 9. So if I add 4 and 5, I get 9. So it's one way for them to start decomposing and see how all the beads work. So then here in the placement value, so if this is the 1s, this will be the 10s. To do the 10s, it's just this. And we can keep counting, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50, and so forth. So that is a little brief introduction to the abacus. And, well, no, that's not what I want. This is what I want. Okay, so back to the presentation. Oh yeah, so as I was saying, so if you notice here, there's the dot is the ones column, and then I'll have the tens column, and then the hundreds column. Okay, so there are there's different stages of learning math. One is having concrete, right? So here in this picture, I have leaves, and I was also showing how to show the number on the abacus. I have 7 leaves, I have 7 on the abacus. Something concrete, so obviously I would have my abacus. You can have abacus too. Oranges or dogs or something that's, tangible for kids to touch and be able to relate to. So some of the examples that I do is I actually have my abacus displaying while I count. Here I have my toys, my dinosaurs. So I was counting 3, and I was counting from 2 to 3. So more examples of adding abacus to counting and to understanding how it all relates is counting food, right? I have my chips. I was counting Legos. I was counting, oh, right. And I went to the market and I went to go count some rolls. So this is how I was adding abacus. So then they can have that relationship that, oh, abacus can be used for counting and so forth. So then we go talking about to pictures, right? So we have pictures of the abacus. I first started with the picture of the abacus, and then I showed you the concrete. So in in here, I'm just showing you the picture of the abacus. Here are 2 cows that Leanne gave me, that not gave me, but gave me a picture of the cows, and I added the abacus, say these are 2 cows, and this is what it would look like on the abacus. Here is one of the activities that you have in the course. In the course, in the class, the abacus class, they just have to match however many items is there, just draw the matching number to the abacus. Here's another example of using a picture and relating it to the abacus. So there's some examples to hopefully that sparks some ideas for you to add abacus as a counting tool, like using any writing utensils. If you have your pencil with you, have an abacus with you. Okay, so yeah, so the third stage is the actual number itself, is the symbol. So the just like the alphabets, right? Like we don't know what a letter A is, but we know what the symbol of that A. It's just the same thing with the number with the numbers, right? 1, 2, 3 is actually an abstract symbol. It's an abstract symbol. And so I was adding in like little activities for them to start relating the symbols to I was relating the symbols to the numbers. Okay, yeah. So then number sense is just a deep understanding of the numbers and their relationship. So again, just to let you guys know, you have the class in the hub. It is there for you to utilize. I'm just showing you a little bit more on how to incorporate Abacus with your classes, or if you choose to guide the parents to show them how to use the Abacus. So lesson 1 and 2, we learn about the numbers, right? We talk about what 1, what 2, what 3 is, and there's activities to go with it so they can see the relationship between it. There's counting on the abacus, and I like the pixel art, and it's interesting to find out what the kids can discover what the pixel art is. And again, so this is lesson 2 where that goes all the way to 9. I stayed with the 1 column because I didn't want to start talking about the placement value just yet, because on the abacus it's easy to just roll into the place value. Okay, so then lesson 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. It talks about the relationship. So this is like counting forward, counting backward. What's the number in between? Okay, sorry. Counting forward, counting backwards, the number in between, and then what comes before and what comes after. We also do comparison too. Then the last 4 lessons that I broke it up to, it's adding and subtracting. So lesson 9 is from 1 to 4. Lesson 10 is subtracting from 1 to 4. Lesson 11 is 5 to 9, because those are it's including the upper bead. And then subtraction of the 5 to 9 is lesson 12. And then the next level would be more complicated math, more complicated adding and subtracting. So Abacus can actually do multiplication and division, and it gets into a little bit more, it's just complicated, more complex questions for math. Oh, so here is the picture of what it would look like in the hub for you guys. Each lesson actually has a download file for you, for the parents or for you to print out at any time, and they will actually follow all of the lessons that I have in the class. Ideally, or if you'd like, I do have I did publish a book on Amazon if it's easier that it's all together. So there's the 2 options, but I have all of the worksheets are all in lesson, or on the first lesson. So Abacus class fills the gaps that's not displayed in the early stages. The gaps that we see in math gets magnified when the math questions become more complex, like algebra, calculus, trigonometry, and all that stuff. That's when it gets like, oh my God, they don't know what they're doing. But we're trying to nip it in the bud and start using more tactile, more abacus, in the earlier stages, so they can have a strong strong number sense. Learning math, sorry, learning the abacus is like saving for the future. It's an investment. We don't see it now, but we will see it later on. Any questions? I don't hear anything.
I don't either. Do anybody have any questions? You can go ahead and unmute if you have any. I have to say, as like, I thank you for going through, because I had no clue how to use an abacus. So but I found it very interesting. So yeah. So it looks like Lori just had a question that says, do you recommend adding other manipulatives with the abacus?
You can add other manipulatives, yes. Um, like pens. The When adding other manipulatives, you have a one-to-one relationship. Whereas on the abacus, there's not a one-to-one, because the 5 is a symbol, right? So if I said 4 pencils, if I said 4 pens, it could show 4 pens. So that would be one manipulative. Is that the manipulatives you're talking about, or are you talking about like the linking blocks and so forth? Lori? the blocks and the cubes. The blocks and the cubes are one to one. You can do it. That would be like a precursor. So it would be nice to start. You could start off with that and then graduate to abacus. That's what I would do because it gets a little tedious when you start working with the larger numbers like 20 and 30 and you have all these blocks. The reason why I would graduate them, once they get an idea of the one-to-one correlation, I'd start using the abacus only because the human brain can only see like 5 things at a time. And so if you go higher than 6, all right, if you do 6 plus 3, then the kids are going to have to start counting each individual one. Whereas if you do 6 plus 3, it's just easier to see. So the correlation between the two, once they understand the one-to-one relationship, I would start them going into the abacus. You could do the 10 bars and the plates. You could do the 10, I'm sorry, the 10 sticks and the plates. But again, it goes back to quantity. So like on the abacus, if you want to do if you want to do tens, I just do that. You have the one stick, but then that doesn't necessarily talk about place value from ones, tens, and hundreds, because this is how we write it. Whereas if you have the actual blocks, we don't write 10 sticks to get to 100. Does that make sense? We would have to put them in buckets. And we don't write in buckets. So, if that made sense.
Actually, it
So,
did. Because I was like,
okay.
at first, I was like, why is it this way? And then just before you had said it, I was like, oh, because hello. So just before you said it, I was like, I got it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what it is. And then you said it, and I was like, okay, I was right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then since this is the ones, we can actually do decimal placements, right? So
Right.
it'd be tenths, 100ths, and whatever. Um, let's see if I can, let me see.
So let me
On
read
the
that.
abacus, oops, not this one. On the abacus, I had it. If it, there's these dots I was going to show you. Let's see if I can. Um, there we go. Did that work?
It's coming.
Okay, yep, hold on. Oops. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay,
Oh,
so on the abacus,
oh, you have the abacus.
yeah,
There,
but
there you go.
do you see it
Oh, the little dot.
horizontal? No, do you see it
Hmm.
horizontal or do you see
Yeah,
it?
it's horizontal. Yeah, it's
Okay, cool.
horizontal. It's like this.
Okay, so here we
Or
have our
vertical. I'm
dot.
sorry, it's vertical.
It is vertical. Okay. All right, so hold on.
You can
If
tell
it's
I still
vertical.
need to know what horizontal and vertical is.
All right. So let's see if I can. Okay, so this is better.
Yes, that's horizontal now. Yes.
Okay, so on my abacus, you'll see the dots, and it's the same thing, but because it's a student abacus, it's not movable. So these are the dots. This is where they would do the ones. You could do the ones here if you start playing around with the decimals, but usually we'd have them here, and that's what they're there for.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's as much as I could say.
it's interesting because for me I've always used that dot as like a place thing, so that's where I know the so I usually use it where we're 4, count 4 over, so we have room for the decimals as we go
Hmm.
up.
Yeah, yeah. It gets. I mean, we get longer abacus. We do have longer abacus, but for preschool, I use the small one, and it's more colorful. But yeah,
Yeah.
they can get to I think 32 columns if you want to
I think
do
they go
competition.
I think they go up higher than that too, but yeah, I think 32 is kind of
The average. Yeah, but what I mean, the one thing I do stress though is like I don't teach for competition. I teach for knowledge and I teach for enrichment. I teach for solid math, math foundation. Most abacus enthusiast would go for the competition because there's a worldwide competition that goes around and there's like hundreds and hundreds of kids and hundreds of competitions, but I don't do that. I'm like, you do you. If you want to do competition, it's great, but I don't stress on speed because I don't think math should be fast. I think math should be understood and it should be thought about.
So how did you get into Abacus? Was that
So I actually started when I was old. My dad wanted to start a business, and he was like, we're gonna do Abacus." I'm like, "What?" So I'm Chinese, and my dad went to Korea to for a business trip, and I was like, what are we trying to learn and why are we doing this? But as I learned more and more about the abacus, I realized how easy abacus is. And so I've been learning, teaching abacus for about 20 years now and trying
okay?
to get it to be more normal, I guess you would say. But yeah, I have three boys and they all gone through it. Yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious because, I mean, I like the fact of normalizing it, like
Yeah.
your presentation, I understood it. I mean, of course, I think a lot of us have seen them, we've heard about them, but we didn't really, the, the American, North America
Yeah.
country, whatever, it's not something that's taught, but it is something
Yeah.
that has been seen. It's been something that has been in classrooms here and there, but it's never been utilized or used, I
It's
guess, the
like
way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? It's supposed
yeah,
to,
it's
it's
like
been, I've seen
decoration.
them in, yeah, I've seen them in, in classrooms as I was been a teacher at different childcare centers, but no one, they just play with them. It was a toy, basically. And so, the fact that just that small little presentation, I was like, oh, okay, I totally understand it a little bit more now. Like I get it.
Yeah.
Where before I
Yeah.
was like, I didn't understand, like, I don't know what this is, or I don't understand how you count with it. Like in my head, I was like totally oblivious to how do you count on there? I don't get it. Like I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, and it took me a while to get to here
Hmm.
and understanding why and what I noticed that a lot of the abacus classes that I've seen and even yeah, a lot of the abacus that I've seen, it's very it's boring, quite honestly, and it's not modernized. Whereas now kids, with preschool, kindergarten, and first grade, the all of their activities is super exciting and interactive and so forth. And that's why I started building worksheets and activities to bring in more abacus in to modernize it. That's what it is.
Hmm.
I'm modernizing, and it should be, and I believe it should be in school. Why? Because it can travel with the child. So you can have your dot counters, you can have your blocks and everything, but does it seem prudent to have it when you're in first grade, second grade, or can you do it on the abacus? So like when we start adding doing multiplication and division, you can do it here and they're already strong enough, they understand how everything moves. I'm a proponent of a variety, have a variety of things and then start narrowing it down. So, you can have your dot counters, you can have your blocks in the very beginning so they all understand like the different ways. But then when you start focusing on like how to use one tool, this tool can go all the way to multiplication, division. You could do the same thing with the dots, but it's just a lot more dots. You know what I mean? Like a
Hmm.
lot more stuff. Whereas this is compact, this can be traveled everywhere, this can go, it can
Hmm.
it can follow you. There was this one student that I had, he's actually in college now and he's out in UC Berkeley or something like that. And he was taking a science class and one of the professors like, "No more calculators. You guys are all done. So this test, no calculators." And he was ecstatic cuz he's like, "Can I bring my abacus?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yes, I can use my abacus in this test." And so it's just funny. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, they do travel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I just
I
remember, oh, I was just about to say, I was like, the first time I was reintroduced to Abacus is as because of Beth, because that was part
Yeah.
of her kit that she would send out when I first joined All Star Group. And
Yeah.
so Beth was getting ready to say something. Sorry, Beth.
Yeah. Well, I do use two different types of abaci. Of
Thank you. I
abacus.
thought I was probably saying it wrong, but
Yeah.
thanks.
It
So anyway,
it comes both ways.
yeah. So basically, I use what's called an AL abacus, which is what we use with Right Start Math, which has the 100 beads, and half of them are one color, half of them the other color, and so that's what we use. Usually in the very early stages, I use that with my preschoolers, and then from kindergarten up, we're switching them over to the traditional abacus.
You mean this the Japanese abacus?
Yeah, Japanese, the
Okay.
Soban abacus. Yeah. The Chinese abacus actually has extra beads.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool because they still mean 5 and 1, right? But because there's more of them, you don't have to trade. Like if you're doing something you don't want to flick over, you technically
You don't
trade.
have to trade, but it's extra steps, and then it's not the introduction to algebra.
Right. And so that's why the Soban is
That's
more
why
favorable.
yeah, so that's why the Sorbonne is more favorable because and I was like thinking about this because when we start working with Sorbonne, right? When we start doing like 5, we'll do we'll do 8 plus 8. That's the easiest. So we do 8, right? So on the abacus we do 8. No, that's 8. 8. The problem
Mhm.
is we don't have any more beads for doing 8. So this is where the 10 frame comes into play. What is the 10 frame? Well, the 10 frame is when you know if I need to make a 10, I have to do 2 and 8 will equal 10, right? In Abacus, we actually switch that around a little bit, and it's an introduction to algebra where we start substituting. So to make a 10, right? It's 10 8 plus 2. We take the 2 and we take it we take the 2 and we minus the 2 and we add the 10 to get 8. So then we get 16. I have to figure that out. I have to figure out how to say it a little bit better. But it's interesting to know that in school they learn how to do the 10 frame, but in Abacus it's part of the system. It's part of the methodology. It's the same thing with the 5 frame. So if we do the 5 frame, right? We need to play with this 5 frame, this 5 bead. So if I want to do 3 plus 3, well, I don't have any more beads to do 3. What's another way to do 3? Well, a 3 to do a 5, right? 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. So what do? I need to add the 5, right? But that's too many beads. I have to take away the 2. So then I get 6. So this is how we start learning how to add. And this starts them off like after the class that you have in the hub, this is where we start going into formulas, right? And then we don't have to memorize doubles. Like we don't have to memorize what 3 plus 3 is because 3 plus 3 is only 3 plus 3. What we need to learn is what can we add 3 to? So if I want to add 3 to 4, I just have to do plus the 5, plus the 5, take away the 2. If I want to add 3 plus 3, I just have to plus the 5, take away the 2. So it's one thing that they have to learn that they can use multiple times as opposed to memorizing the doubles 3 plus 3. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to. I can read the
For me
abacus.
being new, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. See, it gets a little more, but when you start
But I
learning the
get it.
building blocks, yeah, when you start learning the building blocks, you can actually put it anywhere you want, as opposed to just a template that can only go this place.
Right. And we use they're called number buddies. So,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, what's 3's number buddy? We'd say 2, or if we're talking
If you're doing
about,
5s, yeah.
if you're doing 5s, but if you're doing like 10s, and what's 3's number buddy? It's 7, right? And so,
Yeah.
what's
7 because we
yeah, what's
know,
the number? Yeah,
right? So we know
what's
there's
the number buddy?
3 to make a 10, right? It's 7 plus 3. So kids are taught, right? Kids are taught the number buddies, but that's all it goes. That they don't know anything else. But on the abacus, we actually utilize it and it becomes strengthened and more solid to understand how to use the buddies. The
Yeah,
buddies.
because when you use the buddy, you always get the number.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's actually even self-correcting in that way, because if you
Yeah.
didn't get the right number, oh, maybe I used the wrong number buddy.
Yeah.
and so you have to rethink that. And so, yeah, it does strengthen that. Also, what's really cool is I have this book called Finger Math, and it actually uses your
Oh
hands
yeah.
as the abacus. And
Yep.
so we use our fingers as the ones and our thumbs as the fives. And
Okay.
so we usually would pick a hand to be our dominant hand. So we'd probably use our right hand. And so we could do, 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, it'd be like
4,
this and then five.
5.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be,
Usually you're on the table and you're
one,
pushing down your
right,
fingers. Yeah, so
right. So it'd
1.
be, and then this would be five,
Yeah, 5. And
right?
then
So
and
one,
then
two, three,
6,
four, five, six. Oh, yeah. So six is like this. Ooh,
7,
yeah.
8, and
Seven.
9.
Wait, seven is what? Like this?
7.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
would push these
Yeah.
3 fingers down for 7.
Right. Okay.
Usually this is on a table, guys. Usually it's on a table.
Yeah.
Um, and then 8 and 9.
Yeah.
9 is all the beats, right? So, and then they can just do that and use their fingers like that. And then when they get to tens, they do that. But it's one of those things where it's something I don't really teach because I want them to use the abacus more.
Yeah.
But it's something that we could teach. For instance, sometimes we might have visually impaired kids or some other kids that have developmental problems. And so we could actually teach them consistently to use their fingers like that.
Yeah.
And so it's just another option in the whole scheme of options. And it's really cool. The more you look into this and look at the different things that are going on with the abacus and the different things that are being taught in math, the more you
Yeah.
see it all kind of come
Yes.
together.
Yes. Yes. So a
Yeah.
lot of the parents are worried. So for California, they're really big on Common Core, and my kids didn't have any problems with it when it was introduced because they knew the wholeness of numbers and so forth. So, and then that's the other thing is on the abacus, we start talking about mental math, there's actually finger movements you have to do. So the thumb goes thumb up, one thumb up, two thumb up, three thumb up, four thumb up. So that's the four thumb up, right? So then there's a finger down, which is five. So with the muscle memory, like writing, right? We always introduce the kids to writing because we want them to write. They can't be on the computer. They have to be writing. It's the same thing with the abacus. It's solidifying their finger movements to start utilizing the numbers and the beads.
Cool. And
Yeah.
so I haven't looked at the courses yet because I just haven't had time to look at any of our
Yeah.
videos. So do you in there, does it talk about where to get like the abacus, the abaci, in all of that, or is it,
Yes.
what to get
Yeah.
and all that? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
thought, but I
So
just wanted to ask to make sure.
yeah, you can either get it from me or you can get it on Amazon. Right.
Yeah.
Or if you have a Daiso, Daiso has it too.
Yeah, Daiso does sell abacus.
But I don't know if there's Daiso everywhere.
They're around, surprisingly. There's a lot of them around. I haven't seen
Yeah.
one too close to me here, but
Yeah. So
I
yeah,
know on the coast they're really plentiful.
if that's another thing. Let's say you can't find an abacus and there's a Chinatown and Chinatown only has the Chinese one. You can just use these two middle beads. You can do that. So, there's ways to work around it. Just remember not to use the two outer beads. Does that make sense? If
Mhm.
there's a Chinatown, because I think Chinatown's a little more prominent. But I don't know if all Chinatown will have an abacus.
Yeah,
I
or
don't know
what
if,
type they'll have. That's the other
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So,
I mean, especially with modern
oh,
calculators, a lot of people were pushing towards calculators and computers and stuff, and so they were kind of neglecting the abacus. But there are still some shop owners. You will walk into their shop and by the register, they will have an abacus.
yeah. In the course, there should be a lesson that says paper abacus. So, you just print it out and you cut it up. Let me see if I can find a picture of it.
Yeah, I want to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I've
So
been meaning to do
I
that.
I printed this out. So you guys have it, and I made different shapes. And if you didn't want to color it, I have it colored. And so you can actually cut it out and make it into an abacus. And I show you a little bit on how to use the paper abacus with the course. So even if you don't want to buy an abacus, you can use the paper one too. It's just a little bit more clunky. That's all.
Yeah, way more clunky because again, it's paper and not beads.
Yeah. Yeah, but I try to make it as inclusive. I try to make it as inclusive. So, if you didn't, some parents don't know where to find it or what have you, you can use the paper one.
Okay, that's cool. And so on the paper one, so the ones would be the second from the right?
It didn't matter. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. Whatever's easiest for you guys. Yeah. If you're going to talk about place values, you can use it. You can use the one in the middle, whichever. I just made it nice and big so it's just easier to. And some kids like to
Oh,
do like columns. So one of my kids like to do two, two, two. I don't know why, but they like to. So I just encourage the idea of moving the stuff around. So I don't when they're younger I don't go I'm not too strict on the place value. It's when they get older, like when they start doing like adding, to the tens, that's when I
mm-hmm.
become more strict,
Okay.
disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
more yeah. Yeah, in
More
the early stages, like yeah. Yeah.
What'd you say, Beth?
more consistent.
Right, right. Yeah,
We
because
can
you mean
move from ambiguity to narrow into consistency without, you have to recognize that moment when a kid is exploring and you need to
Yeah.
let them explore versus that moment where we can narrow in more.
Yeah.
right, where because
Exactly.
because math has rules, and so you have to follow at some point you have to follow the rules of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I wouldn't one rule. These are the
Right,
four beads. One,
right,
one, one, one. Right.
right. Yeah.
So I.
Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
totally get on the basis of exploration and so forth. And then at some point there comes a time of okay, now we have to follow,
Yeah.
the understanding of the rules
Well,
because in order for it to work to get the numbers
what's
that you're
what,
supposed to get.
Oh
So that's
yeah.
what's really cool, is that they will actually use the Abacus as a toy. I've had kids that will actually use them like a car and run
Yeah.
them around on the carpet. I've
Yeah.
had kids that figured out that they could actually get a nice massage if they rub their foot against it. Like the kids will get really creative with it. And what's really cool is, and this is what we taught even with the blind kids and their white canes. We would give the canes to infants before they could walk. And people asking, well, why do you do that? Because we want them to get used to it, right? Because this is a tool we're going to be using. And the earlier we introduce it to them, the earlier they can get used to it and they can explore it. And then they'll start making connections in their brains
Hmm.
and it'll go from there. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, that's
That's right,
cool.
Lori. I forgot. I also added a way to make your own abacus with pipe cleaners and beads. So it's just an idea. You could do that too, just
Cool.
to bring in activities, arts and craft. I was going to try to find mine, but I can't find it in my mess.
Of course, that's how it works, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I know I have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Any other questions, ladies? I thought that was I learned a lot. So
Really?
yeah, I mean, because like I said, I've seen them,
Yeah.
in classrooms here and there over the over the 29 years I've been working in early education, but no one's ever taught me how to use it or what it actually does, type
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I was like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to maybe add it in for next school year. And then also when I build my center, maybe figuring out
Hmm.
how to utilize it in the classrooms in moving forward too in the future. So,
My recommendation is anytime you're introducing counting, bring out the abacus because that's the consistency that you want to bring across the way. Like you can have, pens and dots and all this and that, but those tools are always going to change when they get older, right? Whereas if you always have something consistent, then you don't have to think about it too much. So when I do my lessons about teaching just the counting itself, when we sing, we do the abacus, right? How do I count to one, one, and then one on the abacus, right? So it's the
mhm.
same thing with, counting, stomping, or whatever. Bringing it in. I think the one thing is just to, if you can keep it top of mind when you're counting, when you're doing math, to bring in the abacus as much as you can. So even my kids are old and they're having problems with some math problems that are multiplication, division, I'll say, you know what, bring out your abacus and let's start talking about it, because you could always go back to the abacus and see how the numbers move. And it just clears their head up a little bit. Instead of seeing the symbols, they see the beads move, if that made sense.
Interesting.
So yeah, even now, like my kid's in 5th grade and he's like kind of a little bit, it gets confusing in his head a little bit. I say, you know what, bring the abacus out and let's start talking about it. And so we'll work through some of the problems with his abacus, because I think in 5th grade they do multiplication and division, like long division or whatever. So
Yeah, that's a long time ago. I don't remember.
but in the abacus
So you're
curriculum,
probably right. It probably was around 5th grade,
yeah,
or yeah, between 4th and 5th, I guess. Sheesh, that was so
yeah.
long ago. I don't remember
So
when that what happened.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say with abacus, it also helps with grouping and skip counting as well. So,
Mm,
but then
wow.
that helps their multiplication. So they're not really memorizing, but they're internalizing what, 4 times 4 is,
Hmm.
because they can see it on the abacus.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like in my brain, I can't even picture how you do that on there. Like, but I get it.
Yeah. 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 So the questions on the abacus, I mean, they get longer. They're like 438 times 684 kind of a thing. And you do all that on the abacus. It's the same thing with division too. You know, for the 10,368 divided by 48 or whatever. Those are some of the more complex questions that are provided in the course. Not this course,
Hmm.
but like later down if they decide to go further into abacus.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Awesome. Wow. All right, ladies, and I'm like, I'm blown. Like I learned a lot, so it was good because I'm like, you know, I like to learn new things, especially on the basis of how you can implement that into, what you're already doing.
Yeah,
So,
that was that was one of my mission is I realized, because so I have my brick and mortar, and I realized that our brick and mortar, we deal with kids that already know how to count, but my goal was to actually start introducing abacus when they're, preschool. So that's why I'm here. That's my mission, is to like make it fun, make it entertaining, but also start introducing abacus to the younger kids so they can bring it into as they get older and so forth. So yeah. Oh,
cool.
yeah. And sorry. Yes. And Annie was talking about the method for adults. Yes, absolutely. I'm never going to be as fast as my kids. They're super fast. I'm never going to be as fast as them. But it also, there's actually some programs for senior citizens that's going on to dementia and stuff. It
Mm,
actually helps them work their brain as well.
mm-hmm,
And so that would be like my further down the line that I'd like to do as well, is to start bringing into like the older folks, just to ward off as much mental illness, I guess you'd say. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's like
They're
it's
always
like
trying to find things to help their brain keep
brain. Yeah,
moving, basically.
yeah. And crossword puzzles are
Hmm.
so difficult. you know, but at least with the abacus, it's just you get the numbers and you just move them. As long as you remember those foundations, then it'd be good.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
Any other questions before we close out? I mean, I thought that was beneficial. So I learned a lot. And I'm like, ooh, a way to set your program apart from other programs, because 9 times out of 10, other preschools are not going to be using no abacus in their
right.
programs. And if they are in there, they're not using them the way they're meant to be used. So they're just, like I said, I've been in childcare centers where they've just been on the shelf, but they're on the shelf. So they're not
Yeah.
being used the way they're supposed to be used.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to make the class as incremental as possible, so they just focus on one thing, and hopefully it is and yeah. And that's what I'm hoping to do, because it's a full curriculum, and it's sequential. It's
Mhm.
progressive. So that's why when it was like, "Oh, it's a Netflix for, kids and stuff." I'm like, "Well, you can't really jump around with Abacus because you gotta have to go in order a little bit."
Right.
So
Right. Well, thank you so much, Lynette. I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it. That was good. Thank you for your time today. And I
Thank
keep going
you.
for my mouse that doesn't work.